Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Worldwide Quest sponsored webinar, London Theatres Through the Eyes of a Londoner. My name is Derek Boys, and I'm going to be introducing you to said Londoner very shortly. But first, I'd like to tell you a little bit more about who I am, why I'm here, and what I hope to share with you this afternoon. I've been an actor and a director for many years across Canada and the US and throughout the world here and there, including times with the Stratford Festival, the Shaw Festival. And for the last 17 years, I've been a resident artist and an ensemble member of the Soul Pepper Theatre Company, which is headquartered in Toronto. And I've had some wonderful experiences there as an actor and a director, but I think the highlight for me has been my time, the honor I've had of being in charge of their audience enrichment program. And that has allowed me to meet people like you, who I call theater collectors, who are absolute, you love the theater, you get the theater, and you have inspired me through the years by your love for the theater. And what it inspired me to do beyond Soul Pepper was to go to Worldwide Quest and see if it was possible to organize a tour with some of you theater lovers to travel to places outside of Toronto to have experiences in the theater together, allowing me to enrich those experiences, but to in fact enjoy them as a group. And I was all set to travel with a bunch of you last September, but unfortunately, as we know, the world shut down and we've had to reschedule my inaugural flight to the UK to next April, not this year, but next year, April 1st to 9th of 2022, to travel to the UK to hopefully see shows at Stratford, at Bristol Old Vic, at Bath, and to, of course, immerse ourselves in the London theatre scene too. And on reflecting why I chose Great Britain as the place to travel for my first trip, I thought about how much British theatre has influenced me as a theatre practitioner in Canada. I went all the way back to when I was in theatre school in Vancouver, and the person who ran that program was an Englishman named Anthony Holland, who brought over from the UK his incredible love of Shakespeare, his love of Ayckbourn and all things British. But what he really instilled in us, and still resonates very clearly in me, was his deep love for the theater. I remember his mantra was learn every part of the theater, learn how to build sets, how to do lights, how to design costumes. And his favorite thing that I still remember in my head was, you should always consider yourself lucky to serve tea in the theater if you get the chance. And that has resonated in me, and it has allowed me to, that deep love of the theater is something that I really connect to with Great Britain. It's in the British DNA is their theater, and it's something that I wish we had more of in Canada. You have it because you're here with me today and you've been to the theater, you get it, but not enough Canadians do. And it was that opportunity to breathe in that history is why I chose a trip to Britain's theaters. And it's why I want to share a book with you today that I've discovered that embodies those feelings. And the book is called London Theatres, and it was written by Michael Coveney and Peter Dazeley. And I'm thrilled to ask the award-winning photographer Peter Dazeley to join me now and share this amazing book with us. So Peter, if you could put on your webinar camera, I'll invite you to join. There's Peter Dazeley. Welcome, Peter. So nice to see you.
Hi from London. Thank you for asking.
There you are. It's so great to have you here. And we've had a few little back and forth, but I was very excited about this experience to spend time with you today. You've just changed studios. You've shut down your studio for many years. You've moved in the last week. How are you feeling now?
Stressed. I've had a studio for 38 years, and it's time to sell the freehold and move on, and just trying to deal with the things that you collect over 38 years and try and get it into a smaller space has been tough, but we're in.
Well done.
It's freed me up quite considerably.
That's fantastic. So I want to talk about this beautiful book, London Theatres. Tell me how it fits into your career as a photographer. You've had a wonderful variety. You've won awarded the British Empire Medal in 2017, which is incredible. You've been a photographer for advertising. Where does this book fit into your career?
Where do I start? I left school at 15. I'm wildly dyslexic, I still struggle, so I've got plenty of notes with me today. So I got a job as an assistant photographer, age 15, and steadily worked up as a career as an advertising photographer. That's really what I do for a living. And part of being a photographer in that area, you're always looking for interesting things, people or places to photograph. And I lived for some of my time on an apartment on the river between Chelsea Bridge and Vauxhall Bridge, which had, may not mean a lot, but it had Battersea Power Station, which was a sort of Art Deco amazing building. And I took some pictures of it and my agent shared the pictures online, and suddenly a lot of people picked up on it. And I came up with the idea of producing, sharing my London as a book. And it took me 4 years to do it, and I found a publisher, and Unseen London was born. There were a couple of theatres in it. And then I went on and did a second book. That was difficult places to see. And then there was a second book, London Uncovered, which was about places you could go and visit with all the details in it. And then my publisher came to me and said their sales department thought it would be a good, interesting thing to do a book on theatres. And having spent a lot of my life in theatres, it was a lovely idea. And as I'd already started and had maybe 4 or 5 from the books I'd done, I was on my way. And then they found Michael Coveney to bring it to life as a writer. And much to my amazement, we managed to get Sir Mark Rylance to write the foreword, of which, if I could have had a paragraph from him, I would have been eternally grateful. But he took it so seriously and wrote 1,000 or so words and wanted our input on what it was mind-blowing to listen to somebody as good as that talking about what he looks for in a theatre. The fact that he walks in and wants to see what sort of ceiling he has, how it's going to reverb, his list of things that the boxes are for the patrons, not for lighting or sound equipment. So it was a really great start, and the theatres were very keen for me to come in and record them as they stood.
That's marvelous. What I'd like to, are you seeing the picture now, Peter? Are you seeing it on your screen? Are we?
Nope, I haven't got a picture at the moment.
I'm going to see if we can.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Showing up now?
Yeah. I mean,
so
one of the things to me is, to me, the weird thing about theatres is that we buy a ticket, we sit down and we look forward in the dark to be entertained and amazed. We never really see the wonderful beauty of the theatres or the heritage that it represents. I was keen to produce a book that wasn't full of red seats. It was important that I could do above the stage, under the stage, around the back, the fly floors, the grids, the dressing rooms, the royal boxes, and really mix it up. My only regret now is that the way things are going on the news today in London, they were talking about the fact that some theatres will not open again, which is incredibly sad. And I'm kind of thinking, will my lovely book be found in the history department going forward? So, difficult time.
I hear you. What I'd like to do is you have a wonderful number of photos. I'd like to start to go through some of those if we can, and have you respond to them, and I'll give a little context of how many seats and that kind of thing, and just hear some resonances. But I'd like to start, if I may, by reading a little piece of the foreword by Mark Rylance that you mentioned had been part of this book. And if you don't mind, I'd just like to read a little piece, because it's such a beautiful intro, I think, to this gorgeous book. So allow me to start with, this is Mark Rylance's words from the foreword. In a theater, you need to hear the truth. In a cinema, you need to see it. This is not to say that the visual and auditory experiences aren't an important part of each medium, but in a theater, no one gets as close as a camera. Many are more than 10 rows away, so the actor's eyes are distant. The thought and emotion need to be heard in the voice. We clap our hands and make funny noises when we first walk out into a stage, any stage, to check the acoustics. I also look up at the ceiling. In my experience, the best of these old theaters always have some circular device in the ornate ceiling. I once toured Hamlet to 11 different cities in Britain, playing all the old theaters, and I learned to look up as soon as I arrived on Monday morning. And when I saw a circular pattern above the auditorium, I knew we'd be all right for that week. You will see a few in this book. If there wasn't a circle, I knew we would have a difficult time. And it wasn't just the acoustics that were problematic, but it was going to be harder to convince the audience that they were in the same room with us. I was asked to write something about how you play these theaters, and Shakespeare's theater inspired me on stage as well as off. Unable to turn off the sun in the daytime, I saw my audience for the first time, saw for the most part their innocence and willingness for the play. In the dark, I had projected onto them my own criticism and disbelief. Thrust on the globe stage into the middle of the circle of shared light, in an age before steel allowed the architects to throw forward the galleries and push the actors behind a proscenium, I realized the single most important lesson I have ever learned as an actor. I must play with the audience, not at them, for them, or to them, with them, with their imagination as fellow players. I was amongst them, part of a circle, a storytelling circle, and they were at the same table, in the same room, around the same imaginative fire of whatever story we had lit. The old theaters celebrated the audience. The audience were treated as gods, creative gods. We actors live in their imagination. I will treasure this book. I hope that it will help to protect these architectural treasures of our nation of storytellers. Mark Rylance. Such a beautiful foreword. And I think we talked about earlier about how he really allowed us into how much he cares about performing and these theaters, and that really resonates. Gorgeous. So let's take a look, Peter, if we can. We're going to start with the Royal Opera House, which I see in front of me here, and I hope everyone does too. You have beautifully put these theaters into different categories, and this is from the Grand Dame of the theaters. It was on the same spot. What I love about a lot of these theaters is that they're rebuilt on the same spot as they burned down through the years and have become rebuilt. The one we're looking at now had a total update in 1996, but was an 1892 design is what we're looking at here. Tell me a bit about your memory of being inside this. There's one of that beautiful ceiling that we heard Mark Rylance talking about.
Well, I mean, I kind of think it's a kind of building that takes your breath away. And it's part of, there are lots of people working in it. I mean, for example, in the whole building, there are 10 floors, and the building has 60 pianos, and there are 1,000 people working in there.
Wow.
It's just an awesome place. That dance floors where that vibrate, that move. A huge backstage lighting grid that comes all the way down to the floor. It has a royal box which I was told a story that there was a mirror in the royal box for Queen Victoria, and we're not quite sure whether it was for her to see it without people seeing her, or whether it was for the ladies in waiting who were looking at her to see it in a mirror. But it is I mean, I think it just speaks for itself. It's such a stunning view.
Absolutely beautiful, huge. I'm going to move on now to a little smaller venue, which is under your Eastward Ho section of the book, Wilton's Music Hall, which opened in 1859. It wasn't originally a theater; it was a Methodist mission hall, and it was saved by some theater lovers, John Earl, and John Benjamin. And took years of fundraising, and is now this gorgeous little performance space. Tell me what you've caught it so beautifully.
A2 listed gem, a real survivor of the 1850s. I think I'm correct. It's not the oldest. I think there's one in Scotland, but apart from that, it's one of the very oldest music halls surviving. The fact that it's still there, it's been looked after, and it's been sort of refurbished in a loving way. There's lots of bare brickwork, and there's lots of plaster with paint still peeling off it. You've got a gallery that goes round in a U shape, and it's just a a marvel to survive all this time, and it's still active. Well, apart from the pandemic, it's still a very successful venue.
It's beautiful. We have a venue in Vancouver, the Vancouver East Cultural Centre. It has the same kind of balcony. Just a beautiful place to play too, acoustically, and looks like that's what it resonates to me when I see all that beautiful wood on the floor.
Yep, and barley twist pillars.
So here we have a look at the rebuild of Shakespeare's Globe, which you have in your popular landmarks section. So this was a big part of that. I'm sure many people know, was a big part of a fundraiser by the American Sam Wanamaker, who helped save or rebuild this. It's now can seat 900 people sitting, 700 people standing, and it does have this outdoor feel to it as well. Gorgeous color schemes. Tell me your impression from a photography point of view when you were trying to capture this.
It's another example of being built on the same place, like lots of the theatres are. I mean,
Yes.
it's just, it's just so lovely to go back in time, and being able to, one of the things is that I didn't really want to be distracted by people. So, going into these places in their downtime or their dark time, and being to be on stage and what the artist is actually seeing. What more can I tell you about it? Sam Wanamaker did an amazing job to make this happen, and also next to it you now have the candlelit, the Sam Wanamaker candlelit theatre, which is really kind of a weird place. So you've got about 200 candles to be lit. When I was photographing, it took me a long time to wait for the candles to be lit, and because a lot of these, I don't want to take anything away from the environment. They're all shot with long exposures. So once I'd got the candles lit, we then had to wait for them to stop swinging before we'd blur. And the picture next to it is the stage roof, the stage canopy of the heavens, and the golden sunburst. And then in the bottom of it, you can see some of the boxes that are available to the more wealthier customers.
I just want to pick up on something you said there, Peter, about the fact that you're photographing these theaters without people in it. And I found that fantastic, in that it allowed me an opportunity to, as an actor, certainly what it would feel like to walk onto that stage, but let our imaginations run with what it would look like inhabited. It left it up to us. And I think that was a really, really strong choice on your part. Just glorious. I also was taken by the fact that as actors, I love this statement here, the Palace Theater, the world's greatest artists have passed through and will pass through these doors. I want to talk a bit about the Palace Theater, but as actors, people may have the impression that I'm very lucky, having been 17 years at Soul Pepper, got to know those theaters and feel like they are the back of my hand. But most of the theaters I play in when I'm outside of Soul Pepper, I'm seeing as an audience. For the first time, I see it in a tech session, and I rarely get to enjoy the beauty and grandeur of these places. And it uplifts me so much as an artist to go into some of these places and be hit that it doesn't become old hat at all for actors to walk into some of these incredible places.
Well, I think some of the actors should be rightly disappointed at some of the dressing rooms. That's not; those are the bits that kind of get hit.
Oh, I know about that. But you don't spend the money on the dressing rooms. You spend it where the public can see it.
Cameron Mackintosh has an incredibly sense of importance and detail, and he is very, I've had, I can remember one royal box that I photographed, and he wants to keep an eye on what I'm doing, and he decided that the cushions weren't exactly perfect, so he either wanted it reshot or it couldn't be used. I mean, I've there's so much money involved in it. We'll come to some of it later. This is the stage door of the Palace Theater in Cambridge Circus.
And this is where Harry Potter's, if it was up and running, is playing at the moment.
Yeah, this is the where they're very, very successful and incredibly expensive for tickets, is the Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. An amazing.
Go ahead.
5-hour play in 2 halves with a 3-hour interval.
And we were all set to go into rehearsal here in Toronto for a version of that here, and then it was all shut down, of course, by COVID. So we have a bunch of actors chomping at the bit to get back. They were all set to go. They had a whole 2 years employment ahead of them, and boom, shut down. But this is where it comes from. It's very exciting to see.
But you know, an amazingly successful show.
Yes, I got to audition for it. I was and had a callback and was really taken by the pride that the producing company had in it too, and they were wonderful to audition for.
Fantastic. Such a tough thing. And this is and the picture next to it is the principal staircase of the theatre.
Right.
So the pictures that we're looking at are just pictures at the time that I thought kind of represented a bit of the book. There is a second edition. If anybody does think of buying the book, this isn't a sales thing. There is a second edition which is bigger and better with more pictures in it.
Well, I do want people to think about the book because it's a book they should have, and there is a chance, I haven't mentioned this, of someone, I'm going to pass on this copy of the book that I have to one of our viewers today. When we get to the question section, Peter and I will choose a lucky winner to be awarded this beautiful book, and Peter has very generously suggested that he will write a note to the winner that they can place in the book to have as a remembrance of Peter as well. So hang on for the question section, which will be happening hopefully in the last 15 minutes of our session today, where we can have one of you take away this beautiful book, but also check out Peter's website too, at dazeley.com, to really have a look at not only these books, but his other books as well, and order them. They're wonderful.
That's very nice. You can be a sales coach. Here we are at the Auditorium of the Playhouse Theater.
Yes, built in 1882, 750 seats. Looks like a really lovely little intimate venue.
Yeah, very close to the Thames. I'm going to talk later about thunder runs.
Yes.
In the old days, there would be a wooden contraption. When you needed thunder, you would put a cannonball in it and it would crash down and make the noise of thunder. This one still works, but the one that there's a picture of later, they've run out of balls and doesn't work, but it's bigger and better. The interesting thing about the way that theatres were built, they used a lot of sailors to build the woodwork and the fly floors and things. So they became quite an important part of why some of the wooden structures look the way that they do. They also used to employ sailors to run the fly floors, and one of the superstitious things is that you don't whistle in a theatre, because sailors use the whistles to raise and lower the sails. So whistling in the theatre could be quite a dangerous thing.
That absolutely resonates. We have that very strong superstition still. I know it came from that background, and we have very few fly galleries left, but we still get very careful not to whistle the theatre. I love that this beautiful Playhouse Theatre was also home to the BBC radio broadcast from 1950 to 75, where the Gong Show came from, the Goon Show, and Hancock's half hour came from, which we are quite familiar with in North America. And I just, that image of it all happening there is fantastic.
Yes, so many of the theatres have had all sorts of different usages. Many have had TV, been TV theatres.
Yes.
Okay.
The Normansfield Theatre. This is a beauty. Under the Hidden Gems section of the book, built in 1879. This was part of a hospital, if I have this written down, that John Langdon Down was part of, and where the phrase Down syndrome came from, was from this hospital, and it was used for concerts and opera performances, but it started as a recreation area for what he called students, which were patients of that hospital.
Yeah, I mean, he was a pioneering physician, and it was really built to entertain and for therapy. And it's still a hospital. It still looks after children now. but it's regularly used. And it's kind of like just it has a sun burner at at the top in the picture. It's just it's so Victorian, but not really seen by that many people. But it is still an active theatre. Very beautiful.
Sure is. Now we go outside to Regents Park Open Air Theatre. And a beautiful little spot there. First Shakespeare, I think, started with Shakespeare in about 1900 and has been kept up through the years. Had I think in 1975 it became a 1,200 seat amphitheater. It's really glorious.
Yeah, no, it's a lovely place. But needless to say, take a Mac with you because it.
Right. Cool down.
So this is the stage set from Pride and Prejudice. It's one of the theatres that did manage to do a few performances in between the lockdowns, and they ran Jesus Christ Superstar for a while.
Okay.
This is it's really an exciting place. I've been there and I watched The Great Entertainer as a film in there. They do all sorts of different things. So it's a really
so they put up a screen on that stage and you watch a film.
Yeah. So it's a lovely thing on a summer's evening. It really is.
That's great. And as you say, that's the same in Toronto, that the only kind of theater we've been able to have is outdoors, and that may happen for a while yet.
I mean, also it does have a limited season because of the weather, and
yes, of course,
they have to make the most of the summers.
Yes. Here's the Prince Edward Theater from your Pleasure Palaces section of the book, which I love. Built around 1930. It has a huge stage. It says the third largest stage in London behind Drury Lane and the Royal Opera. And it had been a cinema as well as a live theater. Jersey Boys, Evita, Chess. Seems like a lot of musicals have happened here.
It's a very Art Deco theatre with lots of boxes. There are how many boxes are there? There are 5 a side. Some very intimate. They go from 2 to 3 to 4. Like I say, but it's also it had a long run with Mamma Mia, which is just the thing in London is drunken hen parties, which is quite difficult to because everybody wants to get up and sing when they've had a few drinks, and it's difficult for the theatres to control.
Drunken hen parties, I like that.
Yeah,
doesn't seem possible in a theater that beautiful, but I guess it just happens in the dark.
Well, some people don't realize what the theater is, and they think that it's I've been talking to some theaters where they've actually had to employ bouncers where they want to get up and dance. Kind of seem to have lost the plot, or whether they don't understand what the theater's about.
Right.
So that's not very nice.
Oh, this is beautiful. Look at that. Wyndham's.
This is Wyndham's on Leicester Square, the Charing Cross Road. Probably the most romantic of theatres, of London theatres, with the initials of the actor-manager Charles Wyndham and his mistress and leading lady Mary Moore entwined together. They're initially entwined throughout the theatre, and it's I was reading today, actually, it's rumoured that the Cosy Balcony Bar was the first gay bar in London. Don't know too much about that, but that's what I read somewhere today.
There you go. 747 seats, it says. Very intimate. Looks beautifully intimate too.
It was refurbished in 2008 and saw the colour scheme of the blues, green and gold, gloriously restored.
Oh, we just keep hearing about this restoration, and I'm in awe of and envious of how you in London. I know it's still a fight to have this happen, but I wish we were better about hanging on to and refurbishing in the way that you are, and how theatre is so important to the UK.
For most of them, it's very difficult because they are listed. And when you have a listed building, there are all sorts of things that you have to have agreement for, have to make sure that you do. It is very, very expensive.
Right. Which is part of the heritage connection, right? That if it's listed, therefore it cannot be pulled
Yeah,
down.
yeah. I mean, they are they are wonderful places. I was going to say earlier, to me, it's there's something really special about the atmospheres in the theatres. You know, you kind of feel that the performances over the years are part of the fabric of the building, and you know, they are precious things to be looked after.
Absolutely. Here's the young Vic. It just seems built in 1970, so we see a much more modern look. But there's that curvature that is in this thrust stage happening there, that intimacy and that connection to the audience that Mark Rylance was talking about. Nothing circular in the ceiling, but certainly an intimacy and a connection there.
Yep. This is the set for the Man of Good Hope. No other. I don't think any other theatre excuse such a mood of improvisation and expectancy. You know, the audience are intimate with the artists. This was because the young Vic was never intended to last more than a few years, and it was built on a bomb site in the 1970s as an outpost for the National Theatre.
Right.
And you know, it's all movable. It's you know, it's never quite the same, which is lovely. I mean, we have so many lovely small theatres that you're right in there with the artists.
And in 1974, it severed ties with the National Theatre, so now it's its own producing entity.
Yeah,
it's wonderful. I just want to share one quote that I have. It's an American quote, but I think it's talking to what we were just talking about the audience connection to these theaters and how important audiences are, and we all feel that as observers of this webinar and care about the theater. Oscar Eustis, who is the artistic director of the Public Theater in New York, he has this wonderful TED talk that everyone should see at some point. Why Theater is Essential to Democracy is its title, and he was talking about how if you go into a movie theater and you've got your popcorn, your soda in your hand, and you see that it's empty, your heart lifts, you're excited, you think, oh, this is great, I can spread out over the seats, I can eat my popcorn, and nothing's going to get in my way of this movie. But his thesis is when you walk into a live theater and you find it half empty, your heart sinks, because whether you know it or not, you're coming to a theater to be part of an audience. You are coming there to have a collective experience of laughing together, crying together, holding your breath, what's going to happen next together. And that if theater does its job, everybody leaves changed, that you are part of a community moving forward. And I certainly feel that way from a performing point of view, is how different it is from doing this on-camera kind of connecting with people that I know there's 100-odd people watching us right now, but it's nowhere near the same feeling of being in a theater together and breathing and sharing. So that's why these spaces are so, I find I'm very moved by that what can be in those seats and should be and will be again in those seats. I wanted to share that quote from America. So let's move to the Richmond Theater, which is part of the Legends Alive. Look at that, gorgeous.
Well, this is, as many of the theatres featured in the book, is a true Frank Matcham masterpiece. Built in 1899, an attractive, elegant construction, built very quickly in 1 year, which seems like amazing in the world in which we live now. It's overlooking Richmond Green, and it cost £30,000, which apparently was well over the going rate of £20,000 at the time.
Right. They went crazy.
This is Matcham was a very interesting man. I mean, there are quite a select group of theatre architects, but you know, he is an amazing guy.
And apparently, As You Like It was the first play that was ever presented in this theater, which I love the idea of Shakespeare happening in that spot. I wanted to ask you, as a photographer, when you look at these beautiful theaters and then you go to the theater and you see when that fire curtain raises, a set emerges and suddenly has to, I don't know if it compete, but it has to be part of this surrounding beauty. How does it feel as a photographer to look at this from beauty, then focusing in on something else? There been times when it works better for you than others?
It's difficult with sets. A lot of the sets are copyrighted and they're off limits. One of the things that I try to do is, like the outsides, not to have signage and shows, to try and give it longevity, that it isn't kind of dated. So it's just really wandering around the theatre and seeing what looks best in your eye, what captures it, and can you get it at an unusual angle, and discovering just what goes on behind, what kind of things are hidden, what kind of secrets show me, and that happens time and time again.
Yeah, it really shows in your beautiful book here. And I'm curious about when you see a show with a set on it when you're in the audience without your camera, are there some set designers that are better at taking advantage of these surroundings than others?
I've seen so much over the years. There've been some just amazing sets, revolving sets, and my dyslexia kicks in because I can never remember the names of the things without looking them up. But I remember seeing Geoffrey Bernard's Unwell in London, and it all takes place in a pub, but the whole of the pub is just a completely and utterly weird angle. It's kind of, the nice thing about, everybody brings something to the party, the hair and makeup, the director, the artists, and the set builder, and all the guys behind them, that's what makes the whole thing exciting.
Absolutely. A shared experience by all. Oh, I love the Stars dressing room in the Prince Edward.
Yep. So as I said before, I love going backstage and seeing what's going on behind. This is one of the more, I suppose I'm a bit naughty because I do mess with it, and when I've got a bit of spare space in the foreground, I'll go and find a pair of shoes and dump them in there. So.
Oh, nice, right.
But another superstition is that when exiting a dressing room, it is believed that leading with your left foot is a sign of good fortune, and conversely, it is believed that to be a good luck for visitors to enter with your right foot forward. Have you heard of that?
I've never heard that.
Well, maybe you should.
I think I better write that down. So left foot leaving, right foot entering a dressing room, is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Your guests.
All right. My career will have a resurgence now that I know that. Here's the St. Martin's Theater, the home of the Mousetrap. Beautiful.
And behind it, you see the Ambassadors Theater, which is where the Mousetrap originated for many years.
Okay.
I'm not sure of the last time I was in the Ambassadors. Stomp was playing, where they play the drums on dustbins and things.
Right.
And they use an enormous amount of the powder that you put on your hands so that you can grip. So pretty much the whole theatre and all the lights seem to be covered in this white powder. A bit dangerous.
Yes, indeed.
But the Mousetrap playing at the Playhouse has been there a very long time.
I have that it opened in 1974, so that's a good long run.
This is truly, if we move along to the next picture, this is truly, I think, the most beautiful theatre we have in London.
Okay.
I guess it's not probably clearly it's on the bucket list for tourists, but it's been showing the same show all these years. It's got red silk wallpaper and polished Italian walnut wood.
Wow.
It is a glorious building. It has some of the oldest stage props in the West End because they've been with the play for all those years. It has a royal box at the back of the theatre, right at the back of the stalls, which I think is interesting. And people love to revisit the show they're very keen to see when a new director's come in how he's altered the show. So it has an ongoing bunch of punters.
We had a run of the Mousetrap here for 26 and a half years, and instead of refurbishing the theater and keeping it beautiful, we just tore it down and built some kind of an apartment building. So it's gone. But same thing, it was one of those Toronto landmarks where we had one person, I think Garnet Truex, his name was, who was in it for the whole 26 years, playing a variety of characters, aging as they went. And so he was kind of a talk of the town for a while. But we don't, this idea of keeping these theaters alive is something we need to know more about in Canada, and I wish we had them. They're beautiful.
Okay.
So here's the Royal Haymarket, inside the Royal Box. Look at that.
So the architect was John Nash, foremost British architect of the Regency and Georgian era. The theatre has been restored with gold leaf to the 1904 Louis XVI distinctive scheme. The Theatre Royal Haymarket was originally the theatre in the Hay because it was built around the 16th century stables to the fine houses. So it was a very messy place. Again, there is so much money involved in theatres. This theatre was sold in 2018 to Access Entertainment for £45 million.
Wow.
With a huge responsibility. The upkeep of this theatre is quite something. Unfortunately, the pictures are slightly out because there's a second picture to this in the picture afterwards. Apologies for that. But if we go on to
in the receiving room, is that the one?
But we go to, we can come to that if we go on to the Theatre Royal Drury Lane. This is one of the biggest theatres in London. This is, I think, the only theatre with two boxes in it. This is when King George III was at war with his son, the Prince Regent, and they hated each other so much. So this is the King's Royal Box, and on the other side you can see the Prince Regent's box. So this is at this present time. I'm waiting to go back and photograph it very soon. We're getting near the end of a £60 million refurbishment. They've absolutely, and the boxes will be saved, but they've absolutely ripped the place apart. Seeing it in the middle of all this work was just mind-boggling how big it is and just how basically they'd taken it back. They spent in excess of £1 million just on scaffolding the building.
Wow.
And I'm sure it will be awesome. They're reducing the seating and stuff. I mean, it will be an amazing place again, and one of the theatres that does tours as well.
Okay. So it'll be worth a tour through when we get there. This is the Royal Haymarket again. This is a
royal receiving room, complete with its fire and doorway. You can see the entrance to the royal box, which was in the previous picture.
I loved seeing the Queen up on the wall there, and you obviously you were able to light a fire for this picture, which is really inviting.
Well, you know, the people are very proud of their theatres. This was a family-run theatre who sold out. And probably one of the difficulty for me was because of the large change of theatres is they were all kind of keen that all of their theatres should be in the book. But there are so many theatres in London that we couldn't accommodate them all.
No, but it's sure inviting, I'll tell you.
Okay.
Look at the size of that, the Palladium.
This I probably had one of the worst dressing rooms I've ever seen. So this is from the Gods at the Palladium. Grade 2 West End cinema, West End theatre, located in the area of Soho. Yet another Frank Matcham. Started as a premier venue for large-scale variety performance. Opened in 1910. The theatre is especially linked with the Royal Variety performance for the Queen, which is still being held there. but people in the gods, they regularly have to refund tickets because of the vertigo, and
Of course.
it's often that customers with the seats up high in the gods just can't cope.
You really do feel like you're hanging over the stage there, doesn't it?
Yes, you do feel it could all come down on you.
Fantastic. I'm just
Okay.
checking the time here. We're at 2:46, and I think in the next couple of minutes, if we don't get through all of the pictures on your website, that's fine, because I would like to have some time for people to have some questions about what they've been taking in, and maybe some memories of places that they've been to and want to share too. So let's go through a couple more, and then we'll go to our questions to see what people are thinking, if that's all right with you, Peter.
Whatever. Yeah, or I can speak a bit faster.
No. I don't think there's any need to rush through for the sake of rushing, because people just need to get this beautiful book and see more. But this is a wonderful test through. Let's go a few more, and then we'll open up to some questions. So here's the Donmar.
It's in the heart of Cotton Garden. This is the set of One Night in Miami, about Muhammad Ali by Kemp Powers. The theatre retains the feel of the brewery it once was, as well as the vat room, and more recently a film studio and a banana ripening storage depot for the adjacent common market.
Ripening, that's nice. Lots of things ripening in this building. Apparently got its name as a combination from Donald Albury and Margaret Boys, Donmar, and I mention those two names because they are the parents of Tim Albury, who directed me in a version of, I'm blanking on the title, but a play at Soulpepper in the early days. He was a wonderful director. He does a lot of opera, but he also directs the theater as well. Nathan the Wise is what I was thinking of, and just a terrific director. And that was in 2004. I worked with him, and so there's this lovely connection to the history that the Alburys certainly bring to the theaters in London that resonates in Canada too.
And again, a theatre where you can reach out and touch the actors. I mean, very.
Not that you should, but you could.
No.
Okay, we'll do the Roundhouse. So as we can see with all these pillars, it was not obviously built as a theater. It was a train station first, a train terminus.
Yeah, a steam terminus with a huge turning wheel in the middle to turn them round. All sorts of entertainment from Circus to rock bands. The Doors, Jimi Hendrix, Rolling Stones played there.
Well, that's an intimate venue for those players. Oof.
Yeah.
Just before we get to the questions, I remember you telling me a story about the Wimbledon Theater, and I want to bring this in because this was a story about what sits atop of it, as well as this glorious interior. 1,700 seat theater that has an angel on top outside. Tell me your memories of this beautiful place.
Angel Letitia. On the roof is the golden goddess of Gaiety, an original fixture back in 1910. Letitia is holding a laurel crown as a symbol of celebration. And interestingly, during the Second World War, she had to be removed because it was the Luftwaffe were using it as a direction finding device to get them to aim into the middle of London.
Wow.
We just
and it wasn't bombed.
Yeah. I mean, it survived. Can we just race forward? Let's just race forward. Let me just a couple of quick ones.
Sure.
Tell
me when to stop.
This is the Royal Court Theatre, which is and the Barbican. This is leather seats and an industrial metal cladding, kind of fascinating.
It sure is.
Keep going forward. Let me just do a couple more.
Okay.
This is the kind of thing that the Blood Brothers thing is the kind of thing that you do find.
For the fly floor, for the cues of bringing in and out the.
Yeah, I mean it's the second half, and it's been kept in prosperity. I think it's lovely to see kind of behind the scenes and what they have to deal with.
Absolutely.
Get to Her Majesty's.
And that's what. Oh yes, here the Thunder Run.
Yeah. So this is home of the Phantom of the Opera, and this is the proper Thunder Run. Although sadly they have no cannonballs left. So at the top of it, you put the cannonball in, and it thunders down and makes the noise of thunder. Again, it does look a bit like a ship, and this is a fascinating theatre because there are several what do you call it? The floors that go up and down, trapdoors.
Oh yes, right.
Phantom to appear and disappear, which aren't as kind of high tech as you think. They have piles of tires underneath to catch them coming down. That was just one that.
That's amazing. That like just the idea of the thunder, the ball rolling down, giving the thunder. Glorious. So let's go to our questions. Let's see if we have any questions. Let me see if I can bring those up. Oh, great. No, do we ever have questions? So keep losing sound. Who is putting up the money for all of the renovations of these beautiful buildings? Roger asks.
Well, I think Cameron McIntosh and Andrew Lloyd Webber, who are so dedicated to preserving our heritage. They are really the two big investors. Some of them have been helped very, very kindly by heritage money. The Royal Opera House had a massive amount of money from the lottery, but it's becoming very, very difficult because clearly the loss of income. Some of the theatres fired all their staff or let their staff go the moment this started, and there are so many freelancers working in the business that it's been very, very difficult for them.
Because these West End theaters are commercial theaters, not the not-for-profits, which would be able to get some government money, but this is about using.
No, there is government money being paid into this. Unfortunately, because of the nature of freelance work, that's one of the areas that hasn't been forthcoming yet. I think they're still working on that, but the government has been paying out vast amounts of money to help out so many businesses and paying for furloughing of staff.
Right. Here's a question from Yara. Are some of these theaters used for ballets and symphonies?
Yeah. I mean, I think if you wanted to see opera and ballet, the Royal Opera House doesn't get any better. They're a mixture. I mean, some of them have been used as TV. I mean, some of them have been used as bingo halls. A lot of them had really odd usages. But yes, there's certainly a lot of ballet and opera going on.
And we've kind of touched on this, but who owns these theaters? Public, private investors? Is Rogers asking this question?
Well, Cameron Delfont and Andrew Lloyd Webber have a large collection between them.
A variety of theaters each, right? They own yeah.
But the company, the entertainment company that bought the Haymarket, as I said, have made a huge investment into the business. So there is it just depends on how they are so expensive to run, and hence the ticket prices are so expensive that without that income, it's just going to be very difficult. And how quickly is it that people will be happy to go and sit next to a stranger in a theatre? Will they want to rush back? Will you need a vaccination certificate before you can go to the theatre? These are all kind of unknowns.
Yeah, certainly questions we're asking ourselves here too, for sure. Here's a question about your photography style. What type of camera equipment do you use, and what efforts are being made to preserve these wonderful places post-pandemic? But I like the idea of Peter's asking this question about what type of camera equipment do you use. I think is a great question.
Well, when I started, I used to take a very large Hasselblad camera with an assistant, a big tripod, a laptop, and a laptop stand, which used to kill me carrying all that kind of kit to get, But the modern digital cameras, as with the phones, I mean, being a photographer, the future is pretty uncertain because the the camera phones will be as good as anything that you're going to ever need. So for me, working with a Nikon D810, it's fantastic for focus. You can cut yourself on the focus. It's amazing in mixed lighting. It's amazing latitude. In the old days with the transparency, you could only bit underexposed, a bit overexposed, and it would be useless. Great for long exposures. I mean, it's as long as you don't tell anybody, I feel like I'm cheating, really, to be honest.
Well, it certainly takes a lot more than just the camera to make these beautiful pictures. I know that your ability, I think you've been described as someone who can have it appear very simple, but it is actually resonating so much more. And I think that that's what great acting can be too, which is how it looks so easy and simple. Oh, I could take that picture, but we can't. You are remarkable, Peter, about what you can do with your photography. So I thank you for these gorgeous pictures. Diane asks, is there a time frame when the theaters will open in London?
They are starting to book some. I mean, I have tickets for several shows back in time, which sort of continually from time to time just get cancelled, and they're trying to keep the tickets live, and hopefully that they will happen. But so much of what's happening in London depends upon getting the rates down and the death rates down, and when it will be safe. But I think one of the difficult questions is, what will it be like to go into a theatre and sit next to a whole load of other people? Hopefully the vaccination will be a mood change as to how we go forward.
Yes.
I mean, interestingly, all the vaccination deniers, I think, are going to find it very difficult without a vaccination certificate to get on a plane or go in a theatre. I think that they're going to have to think very seriously about how bad it can possibly be.
Absolutely. Ray asks, are some theaters suited to various formats? Are they suited to musical or drama?
No, I think that we have a wonderful ability of putting all sorts of different shows in all sorts of different environments. I mean, I think it's a real privilege to be in some of those small theaters when you are so close to the actors and you can see how hard they're working at it. Some shows where you have so much dialogue, you just wonder how on earth do they manage to remember all that.
I look at these theaters and I think I'm most drawn to, because I'm mainly working in not in musicals but in straight plays, as they call them, it's the intimate theaters, not the 250 seats, which would be wonderful, but the 700 seat theaters that are wrapped around. I just would love to play those theaters and just feel how close everybody is. Some of those larger venues are tricky if you're not mic'd to fill the space, but certainly gorgeous to play to. Bridget asked, will your trip also go to show the backstage of the theaters? It will also be interesting. I love that, Bridget, because it's a nice connection to Peter's showing us these beautiful pictures to twig for all of us what we might want to look at. And I think that's a great addition to something we should be thinking about as we travel to these theaters, to say, we want to look backstage too, because what Peter's had given us a glimpse into, and I think that would be a wonderful addition to any trip that we take wherever. So I would say, yes, let's do that if we travel.
I think you will definitely find that. I mean, I think it is an income stream for some of the theatres. Certainly, Drury Lane used to be doing very, very interesting tours, and I would presume that once they're open and running again, they will. The National Theatre has which is an extraordinarily large building with, I mean, it has the enormous department just for dyeing wardrobe, just a dyeing department, huge. And you get to see all those different kind of, the set building and the props. Certainly the National Theatre is a tour well worth doing.
Lovely. Well, I would like to give away this beautiful book. So of the questions that we went through, Peter, think of a number between 1 and 8. Give me a number.
5.
5. All right. Well, let me see. Let's go back and say, well, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is there a time frame when theaters will be open in London? Diane White, you will be the winner of this book. So congratulations. I will find a way to get it to you. I think if you contacted Worldwide, the Worldwide Quest and connect to Samantha, she will connect to me and we'll get that book to you. And Peter, I'll figure out an address to get a lovely note from you to Diane White. Would be wonderful, and I'll make that happen. So congratulations, Diane. And Peter, I just want to say thank you for spending time with us today and sharing these glorious pictures. And please, people, check Peter's website to see what other books, not only this book, which everyone should have, but the other incredible books as an invitation to see London through the eyes of a Londoner, which you definitely helped us with today. So thank you, Peter, very, very much.
Thank you very much. Thanking you to allow me to share my London theatres with you. You know, they are such wonderful, precious things. So thank you, and wishing you all well.
Yeah.
And to London before too long.
When we come over, can I take you out for a drink?
Certainly.
All right, it's a deal. I look forward to that. I'll be in touch. Thank you, Peter.
Okay.
And thank you, everyone, for watching today. I want to say that if you're interested in traveling at some point with me, we are going to make that happen sometime, hopefully next April. And I'm also going to do a webinar next week at this same time with Colin Mockery, who's an old friend of mine, the brilliant improv artist, one of the funniest men on earth. And we're going to share our theatrical adventures together. So if you're looking for some fun, interesting, adventurous theatrical tales, please join us a week from today at the same time at 2 o'clock. We'd love to see you there. Thank you all for being here. I look forward to hopefully meeting you all at some point, and thank you for sharing with this webinar. So goodbye for now.